Hello everybody, welcome back. My name's Jace. This channel is about my efforts to build an N-gauge railway, and I've got the track down, or at least most of it. There's one siding left to do, but I'll explain why I haven't done that in a minute. Been a couple of little alterations along the way, but overall I'm quite pleased. Some of my soldering I struggled with, getting the droppers on. And I changed the solder and it transformed everything. It was yeah, really good. I'm using now this which I've had in the drawer for years, but I'm finding it excellent. It's quite heavy for what I'm doing, but you just obviously don't put so much on. And compared to the solder that I was using, this has transformed it. So some of the droppers I do need to do some disguising of later on, but I'm sure it will be fine. So I'm going to get the camera and I'll show you. So if we start up at this end, we've got double slip, a little passing loop for that line, and then this point brings us into the sidings. And this line here is the platform, and this line here is the freight arriving or departing. So the idea is passenger trains obviously arrive on the platform line, freight trains arrive in here, the engine uncouples onto the turntable and goes wherever it goes, and then the shunter comes along and dismantles the freight train, dragging it back across the double slips and down here off to a head shunt, and then pushes the wagons back in to whichever siding it needs to go to. So overall, I'm quite happy. These are the droppers I'm talking about. I would have preferred them to have been under the rail a bit more, like these. But I was struggling, and once I got it to bite, I thought, well, I'm having that. I'll take that, and I will disguise it later somehow. Paint, ballast, and whatever else. Obviously sleepers have got to go back in here and there. So this is going to be fish freight. This is the harbour, so this is where the fishermen are going to come in, unload the boats onto the wagons. This one and this one are so like heavy goods, so things that would be on open wagons or flatbeds, and in there will be a boat that is being loaded up or unloaded. Here we've got the livestock siding, so this is going to be a livestock sort of platform, pens, etc., with a ramp down to another boat that will be here. This one has got to carry on round along here, and that's going to be coal loading or unloading a boat here. But because it's coal, I want to make it a bit more realistic in that the coal wagons are a bit higher off here, so maybe 20 mil, 15 mil, something like that, which means I have to build a slope down here to about this point, and then it will be level across there. And it's just to give the illusion that the wagons are opened from underneath, the doors open, the coal drops into some kind of hop system, and then that comes out and load the boat. This line is now in for the coaling of steam engines. These two are the general goods sidings. so box vans mainly, and there'll be some sort of goods house, goods shed over there. That's your freight line, platform line coming into the turntable. These are engine shed lines. And Peter, if you're watching, I had a rethink, because you're quite right. A set track point there would be so frustrating. Trying to put wagons, tanker wagons in here for the refueling of diesel engines. So there'd be some kind of diesel tank in here. And I rethought it, managed to come straight off the turntable with a point, electrofrog point. And because they're quite long at this end, I've got that little bit of a straight. So yeah, I think that'll work okay. So yeah, that's going to be some kind of roundhouse type segment. These tracks have been up and down about 4 times, just trying to get the heights right. The turntable's been in bits as well. All sorts has gone on in the last couple of days that I haven't filmed, just because, well, if you've seen me put some double slips in and some track, well, you don't need to see me do it all. But what I am going to do now is turn the board over, and we're going to have a look at all the droppers and what have you that are in there, and see how I'm going to wire it up. Okay. Yeah, I did have one fall off a point. I had to take it back out and put it back on. But there aren't any others lying down in there, so that's a good thing. So I'll move the camera so you can have a better look, and yeah, think about how we're going to wire it up. So all these are all the point work at the station throat and on the sidings. And as you can see, I've got lots of scope of what I can do and how I can wire it up. I have got the holes here and there for point motors as well, so I need to think about not covering those and trying to stay away from them as I wire it up. I think, well, on the big layout, when this is part of the layout in the loft, the actual DCC feed will be coming in this way. So I'm going to bear that in mind as I do it. Maybe have a terminal block here to connect that to, and then run everything as I need to. I'll just move the camera so you can see this bit. So the other night I wired up the roads of the engine sheds to this terminal block here. So I need to run a DCC feed, positive and negative, to there. These have got to be wired back to there as well, really, in a perfect world. These are, there's the coal in line, there's the point that I showed you that I've put in off the turntable, and obviously another line. I think it's the freight or passenger line, I can't remember. But yeah, so they've got to be tidied up, fed around and into this terminal block as well. Some of these wires will come out, some of these I've put in to test things, to test the turntable and what have you. So what I've opted for at the point end of the board is one of these terminal blocks. I've gone round and circled all the holes for the point motors, so that I just try and remind me that they're there, so I don't run wires across them. And I try to stay away from them, so there's room for the motors. And I've bent the frog wires for the double slips down out of the way, and also the three-way point, and left the power wires sticking out like that, because I've obviously got to extend them and connect them into the DCC supply as well. So all I'm going to do is basically, one of these sides is going to be positive, red, and one's going to be black. We've got 3 terminals on each, well 6 if you count the opposing, but I can multiply the wires in these. It's not such a great issue. So I'm going to slacken all of these off to start with. And because these have a screw and then a plate behind the head of the screw, and the plate comes down and squashes the wire like this, I'm not so worried about having to put ferrules on the end of the wires. If the screw actually came down on the wire and twisted it, I'd fit ferrules, because otherwise you just break the wires. But because this is a clamping mechanism, I'm not so concerned. So what I'm going to do, I think, is the 2 DCC wires, red and black, are going to come in here. Red's going to go into there, black is going to go into there, and then they're going to come back out. So red out of there, black out of there, and they're going to carry along to the next terminal block, which is probably actually going to be about here, or maybe up here. And because that's carrying on, and then all of these here will be picking their feed up off this terminal block, or these positive and negative feeds. So that first one I need to leave free, other than I need to make some linking wires to join this one to this one to this one. I might have to use brown because I haven't got any heavy red cable. When I say heavy, I mean something like 2.5 mil. Because what you have to remember is the feed coming in here, these 2 wires are running everything on the board. So they're running the locos, possibly the points, although I might do that the old fashioned way yet with switches, and I think I will, so they'll be separate. But it will be running the track, the locos, and probably a few other bits over time. So the feed to where it splits needs to be bigger. So these are something like 1 mil, 1.5 mil, and then we'll use a 2.5 for the feeds in. So the middle one I'll tighten up. Because that's got a wire in both sides of it. So this one I'll leave loose because I've got the main feed to come in, and that one I'll leave loose because I've got the one to come out to this block. I need to do the same for the black. So that's my link wires in now at the bottom. So those there for the live, those there for the negative. Negative will come out of there, live will come out of there, carry on, and they'll come in there and there. Now, all I've got to do now is run the red wires to the live 3 terminals and the black wires to the negative 3 terminals. So, and I've got to stay out the way of all of the point motors. So they're going to come around something like that, and the red can come down and into one of those. So I'm going to cut it off about there because I want a little bit of slack in the system. And then I want to bear this back quite long. And that's so I can get it shoved right down inside one of the terminals when I tighten it up with other wires. The point is I can get lots of wires into these terminals. So that's that one. That one could come down into there as well, I think. Like so. Solid. So that's the pickups for 4 of the wires. I've got to extend these yet and put those in. Okay, so we've got that one. I'll have to come around there with that. Down there. And this is all I'm going to do to hopefully get it working. Bend that out of the way. And I'll do the same for the black, and it'll all end up in this terminal block. So when I've done that, I'll bring you back. So as you can see, I'm starting to get them there. I might need to extend a couple of them in time. One point motors get positioned or whatever, but I'm not worried about that. I just want it to be tidy so that when I'm moving this board around on this worktop, I'm not snagging wires. So what I've got to do is extend the power feeds to the double slips. So I've got one here, one there, one there, one there. The ones facing this way are black. They're going to be black. So this one and that one. Because that's the back of the board, that's the way I wired it up. Hopefully all the wires to the back were black and all the wires to the front were red. If I have made a mistake somewhere, it will become apparent with a short circuit as soon as I plug everything in. And then I've got to find out which one. But so to extend these, what I'm going to do is snip that back a bit. So this will be, that's actually a frog, figure that one. So this one here is going to be red, black, black. Yeah, and this one is black. So I'll snip it back like that. Attempt to tin it. My soldering iron is just let that warm up. We'll get a piece of cable ready. There's a piece of cable already tinned, that one, and some heat shrink. I'm going to want some heat shrink. Nearly there, nearly up to temperature. So just want to try and get some solder to melt onto this wire. Beautiful. Get my other wire and just try and solder them together. Happy with that. Get the heat shrink. And then with a soldering iron I can melt that on. Shrink it, melt it, whatever the terminology is. Right, and then that one's going to get wired into there. That one there, so I've got to bring this one across as well in black. So I'll do that, and then I've got to bring this one across in red and this one across in red. So I'll get those done. I'll get all this area finished and I'll bring you back. That's all the feeds in this area. So what we've got there, 1, 2, 3, there's quite a few points there and a few bits of track as well. Some of these would reach across, but what I don't want to do is have half a point on this block and half a point on that block. I'd rather keep live and negative for a point on one block. So all I'm going to do is put another block back here somewhere. Might even put it that way around. I think it'll fit better in this area. And then I'll bring you back. You don't need to see me do it all again, it's exactly the same. So I'll see you when I've done that. Okay, so this is the point end of the board now. So all the reds coming in and the blacks all joined. And then the turntable end, we have a similar thing. So what we have here is this black and this red. They are the feed in from my DCC controller. They loop across, feed all of these, but also take the power out along to the next terminal block, where it loops across to feed all of those and then loops out and across to this one. Now I've wired it that way because it's easy for me to use in this room. When it goes on the real layout, the feed will come in this way. So it will go into here, along here and into here, and then across here to here. But I will take this wire and this wire away. So that will be the end of the DCC. So I've plugged it into the DCC and we've got a short somewhere. Now I am just going to check, just grab my multimeter, because I've got two sets of red and black cables going in. One to supply the motor for the turntable, which is that one. What's this one? That's okay. So I'm just checking that I have actually got it connected to the right black and red. That would be that one. So yeah, I have. Have I? red, black. Okay, so we've got a short somewhere on the board. I've disconnected the black leads from the engine shed roads just to eliminate those. What I'm going to do now is disconnect this cable here, because all that will leave powered then is the bits of track at this end of the board that I put in today. So I'm just going to take one of the wires out. I'll just take the red one out because it's easy to get to. So the DCC power can't get down to that end of the board, it can only get to here. So if I now do this again, so that's happy, and then I've got to try and plug in the earth or that, and we've got a short. Okay, that's interesting. So we've got a short somewhere in this area. How strange. Right, I'm going to investigate and I'll come back to you. So I was up until about 1:30 last night trying to figure this out, taking wires out, testing a bit, taking another wire out. I've made a big mistake and I'll show you what it is. So the wiring that I've done is okay, red to red, black to black, etc., and the feeds on the tracks are the right way round. What I've done, I was in DC mode, not DCC, and I should have insulating fish plates here, here, here. Well, I have got one there because it's onto the double slip, but between the points I should have double insulating fish plates. And I was thinking it through, and I went online, watched a few videos, and yeah, and it reminds me of a time I went into a model shop and the guy told me put insulating fish plates on every rail of a point if you DCC. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Because we're powering every piece of track, there's a live and a negative on every piece of track. And if we were to take this point here, so I've got a live soldered on here, a negative here, a live here and a negative here, a live here and a negative here. That's fine until this live from here comes across to the frog, because I've got a standard fish plate there. So that frog is now positive. But here we've got a negative coming in, standard fish plate to the frog. That frog is now trying to be negative. It's trying to be positive and negative at the same time. And therefore that's a short. If we look at the back of one of the points, the frog is connected to these blades here, the point blades. So when you switch, as the point is there, power is coming along here through the switch blades and to the frog. It isn't creating a short on a DC system if you were powering this from, say, this end, because this switchblade isn't in contact with the rail. When you do this, it's now making the frog. This rail is sending the power through to the frog, and it's all connected at the back. And that's the problem that I've got. I should have insulated the frogs at least on all of these points in the sidings, and that one there, but I didn't. Schoolboy error. First time I've used DCC, so I am learning, you know. So what it means is basically I need to lift that point, that point, that point, that one, that one, that one, and put insulating fish plates. And I think I'm going to do what the old boy said to me: insulate every rail of the point, because you're powering the point anyway, and you're powering all the pieces of track. So you can do it on DCC, you can completely isolate the point. Whereas on DC, you could do it, a lot of wiring, but you tend to allow the point to transmit the power. Yeah. Build a model railway, they said. It'll be fun, they said. So what I've got to do is take the track up, certainly so that I can get these points out, swap the fish plates, and put it all back together. It's not a massive deal, you know. These are only pinned in like a couple of places, and I can get those out, no issue. And while I'm doing it, I am going to this horrendous soldering so that it's more like that. Because I know that I'm going to look at this forever and be really annoyed with myself that I didn't take the extra time to sort it out, especially as I've got to take the track up. So I'm going to sort out that one, that one, that one I can live with the ballast on, that'd be fine. That one, and all the others I'm happy with. I've got no problems with those. So there we are, lesson learned. And the other problem is I've only got 12 insulating fish plates and I need about 30. So fortunately the show is tomorrow at the NEC. So on my shopping list is insulating fish plates and going around talking to people, getting advice and learning about points and DCC. And please tell me in the comments if I'm on the right track here, pun intended, and I'm going to be doing the right thing. So thanks for watching, guys. This is going to be continued, don't worry, next week, to see if I am on the right track. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting exercise. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please hit the like button and please subscribe. Really helps the channel, and I'll see you next time.